Hi, my name is Volodymyr and I am a CEO of a software development company named NERDZ LAB. We specialize in a startup building and a growing new and young businesses. Hi guys, so today we'll be touching a pretty interesting and a hot topic, which is AI development. For past few months, maybe even a year, it's in all around the world, everybody is talking about that, and all because of OpenAI and the progress they're making towards the AI development overall, and how good, reliable and flexible it is. So firstly, let's start. What is an AI? In translation, artificial intelligence. Let's start from the general tasks that computer can do and computer cannot do. In reality, computer can easily calculate super hard equations in less than a second, which human would take a few hours, but computer cannot easily determine very specific decisions what to make. For example, he cannot determine who is talking based on the voice. He cannot answer an easy question. He cannot identify who is in a picture because it's complex for him. It's too hard task, while for a human it's less than a second. So in this case we're like exchanging the roles, what we can do much better than a computer. And this was a pretty constant problem in all around the world, because if we cannot overcome it easily, we're creating hard and complex solutions with UI element to cover the possible cases. For example, if we will take some notes, get an image, have a calendar to plan it, etc., etc. So you were doing it all on your own, completely. Currently, it can be easily solved based on AI, because AI can propose you, AI can give you hints, AI can create you a text or even create you an image. And as a result, it's simply mimicking what other human would do. So you can imagine it as you are hiring an assistant, or you are hiring a third-party intellectual element that would try to mimic user or human behavior. So envision AI as a black box that has some input and output. When you input the data, something happens, everything is done by AI, and then it outputs the final results. Sometimes developers does not even understand why AI behaves like that, because it's unclear what steps it took to finally get this decision. Therefore, it's kinda hard to predict the final accuracy and the result of an AI. But how then it tries to mimic, and how actually it works that AI behaves like a human? So in reality, before artificial intelligence, before model become a fully functional, it has to be trained. It means that we have a specific task. For example, identify on which picture there is a dog. We are giving AI a bunch of the images, telling, so this image has a dog and this image does not. This image has and this image does not. And based on different images and different patterns in the image, AI simply memorize what image will have a dog and what is not. The better learning process, the more data you are inputting and more accurately, with higher variety, different shades, different breadths and so on, the better the model will behave and the more accurate it will be. Of course, you are not guaranteed that at some point the image that will have another object pretty similar to the dog will be treated as a dog, because AI has its accuracy still. But the more time, the more data you will put it in, the better the result will be. This learning process by a human is transferred in the end in the mimicking of the AI behavior to do the same approach to other similar or correlevant elements that would fit this pattern. In past, AI was pretty hard and expensive process, because firstly you need to have a bunch of data to train it to the quite an accurate level. Secondly, the training process took a bunch of computation resources that cost inefficient. And thirdly, when you finally receive the model, which is a large file, you need to execute this model each time. And executing the simple code base, each has much less resources than executing large unoptimized model of a code. And as a result, each simple task had to grasp more resources than a usual would, until it was optimized and a proper amount of resources by giant companies was spent to give us ready solutions. So what is 3 most common ways in current world to use an AI? The first one, and the most complex, is to create and teach your own model. In this case, you're doing everything from scratch. You are picking the algorithms that will be used to teach the model, you are getting the data. Data should be positive and negative, so you can tell what is positive result and what is negative. Then you are feeding this data into the model, testing, getting new data, feeding, and it's very long and time-consuming process. But in the end, you can train the models that you need with your accuracy, with your precision, and with your really specific tasks. The second way is to use existing models, but uptrain them. For example, there is a model called Llama, which is open source, developed by Facebook, and you can easily get it and use. But Llama is a large language model which was trained on the basic information. Therefore, for some specific cases, it won't give you an accurate answer. So you can ask the case about your current job or your current business or anything that Llama doesn't know, and that it will end up in a wrong response or no response at all. For such a case, you are using what was already pre-trained to get an accurate way of communicating with the user, pretending that this is a real human, but you're uptraining with an additional information to make it more tailored and know the information that it doesn't know yet. So this is a much simpler process because you are starting with a pretty good ground. All you need is to add additional information that it is missing. And the third one, which is the most easiest way to do, is to use ready models or that's hosted on your server or hosted on a site server by API and do a prompt engineering. So what exactly is a prompt engineering? I think everybody used a ChatGPT, that's why I would use this as an example. When you want a ChatGPT to give you a very specific result in a specific type or regarding specific format, you are adding more parameters to that. For example, please create me a marketing campaign, but this marketing campaign should be for 7 days. It should include 2 social posts, 2 email alerts, and additionally LinkedIn outreach. So it's like you are creating a one sentence that describes what exactly it should be. It can be very complicated, it can have a bunch of additional information parameters that ChatGPT should include, and this is named prompt engineering because you are trying to find the right task for a ChatGPT to get a partially expected result. This is the easiest way to do, and this takes nearly no time to create unless you are trying to do a very specific prompt with a desired accuracy. I would describe these 3 ways like you are trying to get a car. The third one, the prompt engineering, is a card from a dealer where you're just selecting the basic setup that it offers. Second one, where you're uptraining your model with additional information. This is buying a car from a dealer, but tune it on your own, adding specific elements that dealer cannot propose to you. And the third one, when you are creating your model from scratch, from the ground till the end, it's inventing your own car. As you understand, the third type should be rarely used in an ordinary business cases, because this should be very specific case when you want to create it. If you are getting back to the car, it can be a specific car that can dive under water or fly into space, because it's pretty obvious that this is very accurate and specific task that ordinary car from a dealer cannot do, and you cannot tune it in the way that it would have a desired accuracy. It means that most likely you will be using second or the third type, uptraining existing model from a market, or using a prompt engineering with an existing model without any uptrained process. And lastly, regarding these 3 models, the second and the third one is not that hard. It's not something complicated as you can envision. This can take even few days up to a month in total to get the desired accuracy, and it will work pretty good. That's why you may consider using it inside your app if that was a factor that you were scared of, because usually a lot of clients think that AI is complex and will require a bunch of resources. And most likely it's because the option number one, because they envision that you will be training your own model from scratch, and that's really complex and it's kind of costly approach. Still, AI is not a panacea. I see a lot of the times customers try to use AI for any specific tasks just because they can. The problem with an AI, as I mentioned before, and that's the problem that currently whole world is having, is that it's very costly in terms of computational resources. It means if it costs you $1 to run a very simple task in your app, if this task would be run by an AI, it might cost $50 or $100. So it's very expensive. What it means is that even AI can behave as a human and simplify user life, you need to use it in a very specific cases to keep your business model on a desired prices. So what should you do in this case? Firstly, and which is a very obvious answer, if AI is not needed, do not use it. For example, if your application is tailored for a very specific accurate tasks, like a marketing agency who needs to plan the marketing campaigns, AI would not give them the desired accuracy, and as a result will lead to money or client losses. In this case, you do not need to feed an AI into their daily routine. You need to give them an instrument that they can efficiently use and use their brain and experience to finalize their tasks to create a marketing campaigns for customers. Still, if you need to use an AI, in this case, try avoiding using large language models. For example, GPT 4.0 or any GPT model, it's a large language model that was trained on a huge amount of data. This model can do a lot of tasks, and because of that, it's pretty expensive to run it. Meaning you can ask a GPT model to create a marketing campaign. It will do it not that good way because it lacks information, it lacks experience and accuracy, and it will use a bunch of the resources. But if you would find a model specifically for marketing strategies, it would firstly do a better result because it was tailored and teached based on the marketing campaigns of a real companies or of a real businesses that gives a value. And secondly, it will cost less to run one request just because it's much simpler model. It's tailored just for marketing, and it doesn't need to know about any additional farms, cars, health insurance, etc. It's not needed information for that, and as a result, it's cheaper. Still, if you're building an application that requires all this information because it's very wide, like you're building an assistant, or you're building the application that generates images, etc., and customer can have any prompt from any industry, from any specific case. In this case, you need to use a large language models, and that's the reason they are named LLM, because they are heavy, they are large, and they were trained on a huge amount of data, and they are trained each day, each time, and it costs a lot of money for the companies. For example, Microsoft or OpenAI, they are still unprofitable just because it costs more for them to maintain these models than they take a subscription prices from their users. I understand that when you are an early adopter, you're an early startup, it's kind of hard to find and after finding tune the model to get what you need in your specific tasks. You can use in this case an LLM because it can do a bunch of tasks, and it will be a good way to start. When you will start growing and expanding, that's the good time to start thinking what exactly you can change, because it may be unprofitable and may ruin your business model just because your customers won't be ready to pay a subscription just because they are using an LLM which costs a lot of money. Another thing to talk is that AI can be used as a core of your application, and at the same time, it can be just a supportive element to specific features. If it's a core of your application, for example, you're building an AI assistant, then you should be considering very carefully what model and how you'll be using, because it's probably 80% of your success. Still, as most applications are not around the AI, they have a bunch of features that can be simplified by an AI tool. For example, we can use one of our products named Scopo. Scopo is a tool for building an estimate for the end customer. And when you're building the estimate, you have a bunch of work that you need to do, which are kinda not useless, but it's very routine. For example, there is a scope file where described all the details, and you need to split these files by a module. So you need to read 5 pages, then you need to identify which module are described there. Is it a messaging? Is it Stripe integration tool, payments, profile, etc. And then create one by one. As you understand, there can be 10, 15, 20 modules depending on the size of the project. And as it's pretty high level task, you can easily ask AI to read this file and create the module for your customer. In the end, you're giving a better user experience to the customer that saves his time by giving these tasks to a third-party tool. And as a result, he can prioritize more accurate tasks that AI cannot handle. For example, I would hardly doubt that AI can accurately estimate how much time a specific task would take. And if AI would be inaccurate, it could lead to the hard losses of a company, starting from money losses, ending with reputational losses. That's why it's good to understand and identify what elements can be changed to be flexible and what not. I can give you 2 simple ways how to identify where exactly you can use it. The first one is to understand what exactly in the current application or current website that you're proposing to a customer spends time the most that could be handled by a real human. So imagine that he has an assistant or he has hired someone, and this real human can be an AI. For example, the real human can read this document and without the deep understanding of a tech industry can split it by modules. Task number 2 is what's currently customers of your application doing outside of it, because application does not support it or is not able to support it. So what is an additional value that you can bring for your customers to get them even more involved in your product? For example, the customer of a marketing planner application most probably are generating images in third-party tools, then importing them into marketing planner to get additional value. You can generate it in your platform based on the predefined information of campaigns that customer would like to run, and it would be an additional value for a customer and a way to keep them engaged with the app. So by asking these 2 questions, you can identify the possible areas where AI can play a good role for you. The last and probably one of the most important questions are pricing, right? Because each business wants to be maintainable and each business wants to have a good business model that brings money. So AI features, at least second and third parts that we've discussed with tuning existing model or using the one that's ready, they are not that expensive from a development time or development cost for a team to integrate them into the app. Because in reality, there is a model that does all the work. So if you would be writing a code base, in this case, you would need to be concerned about edge cases of this code base. What if user pressed this button? What if user already did this action? What if this user is registered or is not registered? So there are a lot of circumstances that you need to encourage during the code writing. In AI, all of them was used during training, meaning during the training, you gave the data telling if this happens, this should be the result. And if this happens, this should be the result. And in the end, you got this black box that has all the circumstances encapsulated. All you care about is just to put data inside and get the value and then interpret it. Therefore, it's very easy from a development perspective. What it becomes really tricky is real costs. If you're used to server costs simply for a general application, you should be ready that with running AI it can increase in several times. It's really dependent what is the frequency of the requests, what is the complexity of the request to the AI, and how are you using the model, how big is it, because all of that will end up with user delays or with increasing the prices, etc. That's why it's very important to calculate it upfront, because there was a bunch of stories in which customer integrated AI without any limitations for their users, and it ended up that their business model become unprofitable just because they're paying to host it and to maintain it more than user pay in a subscription. That's why you should keep it in mind and always be careful with your usage and understanding of the circumstances it can bring. As to me, I truly believe that AI is the next future, and everything is changing very rapidly. Therefore, if today there is no ready model or there is no sustainable business model for you, it will be in a month or in 2 months. It's just because how rapidly it grows and how cheaper it behaves. Look just in a ChatGPT. It were super simple and highly expensive model just a year ago. Currently, their accuracy is insane. They can do a bunch of the tasks, read documents, create documents, create images. At some point, they are even reading videos. And each time the pricing for usage is lowered and lowered. Even if today it's not the time for using it, you should always stay tuned and be ready that at some point of a time, in months, in 6 months or in a year, you will get it, because everything moving towards this solution, and it will be the next phase of the human growth.